My story might be a bit long, but I could use some advice on what to do, or if anything should even be done. For some context, I started working at a construction company about 6 months ago. It's a pretty large operation with several locations, including a remote dumping site deep in the forest. I spent around 2 months working there, just me and one other coworker, completely isolated within a 5-mile radius. About 4 years ago, someone from our company died at that same site. He suffered a heart attack while operating a heavy machine. His partner, who was supposed to be working alongside him, ignored multiple truck drivers who mentioned the strange, erratic movements of the machine. The guy was alive for 45 minutes, trapped in his seat, paralyzed and unable to call for help. The machine kept running until it eventually crashed into a tree. Only then did his partner bother to check, but by that point, it was too late. From what I heard, he could have survived if his coworker had just paid attention and acted sooner. Ever since I arrived, the place has felt off. There's a heavy atmosphere, an eerie presence that seems to linger in the fog and darkness that often blankets the site. My coworker and I were both new to the company, and before us, the site had been mostly abandoned. It started with little things: locked doors found mysteriously open, strange noises echoing through the pit with no clear source. At first, I brushed it off, but when I left for another job site, leaving my coworker alone there, things escalated. He began reporting bizarre occurrences, seeing figures that appeared to be customers wandering around the site, only to vanish when he tried to approach them. The most unsettling incident involved animal remains. Parts of animals were being found scattered around the yard, which wouldn't be too weird given the wildlife in the area. But the disturbing part? These remains were found inside locked storage containers and job shacks, places that should have been secured. Our surveillance cameras have been acting up lately. Normally, I'd blame it on the poor service in such a remote area, but the outages happen at oddly convenient times, right when strange things are happening. A large wooden sign we had at the entrance mysteriously toppled over one night. We assumed it was just an unruly truck driver, but when the footage finally loaded, we saw something that chilled us to the bone. It looked like an invisible force had slammed it down. There was no one nearby. My coworker is stuck there alone now, and I'm honestly worried for him. The place seems to be getting more hostile, more active. This is my first time dealing with anything remotely like this, and I have no idea how to handle it. Is it possible to calm an angry presence, or is ignoring it the best course of action? I feel like there's something lurking in that pit, and it's only getting stronger. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Lately, I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me, even when I'm miles away from that cursed pit. It's as if whatever resides there has latched onto me, refusing to let go. My coworker and I have started sharing our experiences with a few trusted colleagues, hoping they might have some insight. Most laugh it off, but a few give us knowing looks and tell us to stay cautious. Last week, my coworker called me in a panic. He swore he saw someone, or something, standing in the middle of the pit at night, just staring at him. When he shined his flashlight in the direction of the figure, it vanished. He searched the entire area, but found no footprints, no signs that anyone had been there at all. The strange thing is, he said it looked like the guy who died there years ago. The animal remains keep appearing in new places, more gruesome, more deliberate. One morning, my coworker found a severed deer head placed right outside the break room door. The door had been locked all night, and there were no signs of forced entry. The cameras conveniently went offline again, of course. We reported it to management, but they dismissed it as nothing more than wildlife scavenging. I decided to take a trip back to the pit one evening, just to see if I could experience anything firsthand. I regret that decision now. As soon as I arrived, the air felt heavy, oppressive. It was dead silent. No wind, no rustling trees, nothing. I walked around the perimeter, flashlight in hand, feeling like I was being watched from every angle. Then I heard it, whispers. Soft, unintelligible, but unmistakable. They were coming from the direction of the old storage container where the first animal parts had been found. I slowly approached, heart pounding in my chest. The whispers stopped as soon as I reached the container, but as I turned to leave, the door creaked open by itself. Inside, there was nothing, but the smell, something rotting, hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't stick around to investigate further. I bolted back to my truck and sped out of there, swearing I'd never return alone. Now I'm left wondering, what the hell is happening at that place? Is it haunted by the man who died there, angry at being left to die alone? Or is it something much darker, something that was always there, lurking beneath the surface? One thing is certain, I don't think this will end well if we keep ignoring it. After my terrifying experience at the pit, I started having nightmares. They were vivid and unsettling. Visions of the dead operator, his lifeless eyes staring through me, his lips moving but no sound coming out. Sometimes, I saw myself trapped in the machine, unable to move, watching helplessly as shadowy figures closed in around me. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. Meanwhile, my coworker's situation worsened. He called me one night, voice trembling, saying he heard banging noises coming from inside one of the locked storage units. When he mustered the courage to open it, he found nothing but a deep gouge on the metal wall, like something had been trying to claw its way out. He begged me to come back, but I wasn't sure I had the courage to face that place again. Despite my fears, I returned the next morning. As I arrived, I noticed fresh tire tracks leading into the pit, but no one else was supposed to be there. I followed them and found an old, rusted truck parked near the tree line, one I had never seen before. It looked abandoned, but the engine was still warm. Inside, there were strange markings carved into the dashboard, symbols I didn't recognize. I took pictures and sent them to a friend who dabbled in the occult, hoping for some answers. That night, my friend called me back, her voice low and serious. She told me the symbols were protective wards, often used to trap spirits or keep something contained. This revelation chilled me to the core. Was someone trying to contain whatever haunted the pit, or had they failed, and now it was free? Determined to get to the bottom of this, I convinced my coworker to stay with me overnight. We set up inside the break room, keeping the lights low and watching the security monitors intently. Around midnight, the cameras started glitching again. Suddenly, we heard heavy footsteps echoing outside. We grabbed our flashlights and stepped out, scanning the area. Nothing. But just as we were about to head back inside, a low, guttural voice whispered both our names from the darkness. We bolted back inside and locked the doors, hearts racing. Whatever was out there knew who we were. At this point, I'm convinced we're dealing with something far beyond our understanding. Should we report it to the authorities, or will they just think we're crazy? All I know is that whatever haunts that pit, it's not done with us yet. The following day, my coworker and I decided we needed to escalate things. We went to our supervisor and laid it all out. The noises, the figures, the strange symbols in the truck, everything. He listened with a skeptical smirk, nodding along like he was humoring a couple of kids telling ghost stories. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Look, fellas, that site's old. It creaks, it groans, and sometimes things get weird, but there's nothing to worry about. Just stay focused on the job." Frustrated but not surprised, we left his office knowing we were on our own. I suggested bringing in a priest or a paranormal investigator, but my coworker shot down the idea, saying, "What if it makes things worse?" I didn't have an answer for that. That night, I had another nightmare. This time, I was buried beneath the pit, suffocating, while unseen hands clawed at the dirt above me. I woke up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. Something told me that we needed to leave that place for good, but quitting wasn't an option. We were trapped, just like whatever was in that pit. 2 nights later, the final straw came. My coworker called me at 3 a.m., his voice barely above a whisper. "It's inside," he said. I could hear the panic in his breathing. "It's in the break room with me. I can hear it moving." I told him to get out, to run, but all I heard next was a sickening crack and the line went dead. I raced to the site, speeding down the winding forest roads like a madman. When I got there, the break room door was wide open, swinging slowly in the wind. My coworker was gone. No sign of him anywhere. I searched the entire pit, screaming his name, but there was nothing, just eerie silence and the ever-present fog rolling through the trees. The authorities launched a search but found nothing. No footprints, no struggle, just his phone lying face down in the mud outside the break room. Management chalked it up to him quitting without notice, but I know better. Something took him. I turned in my resignation the next day. I couldn't stay there. Not after what happened. But the nightmares haven't stopped, and sometimes, when I'm alone, I swear I can hear that same whisper calling my name. I don't know what that place is hiding, and I don't think I ever want to find out. My only hope is that I can forget, that I can move on. But deep down, I know it's not over. It never was. Some things should just stay buried.